Hi guys, and welcome to At Home with Elisa. I am currently sitting in my brand new garden extension. Now, if you've been following for a while, you would know I have been hoping and praying that this garden extension would happen. It happened a little bit quicker than what I was expecting, but I'm very excited about it. So much more growing potential. I will take you for a full tour, but I just wanted to give you some details on it first of all. So the new garden extension is approximately 150 square metres. The original garden is 170 square metres. So that all up is 320 square metres of growing space. That is just huge, considering that at our last property I think I had maybe 10 square metres of growing space. If you add into account the new garden extension plus the original garden and the chickens area, that whole size is the exact dimensions of our old property. So our old property, which had a beautiful big family home, a swim spa, huge entertaining deck, studio accommodation, all of it all fit within these garden fencing, and that just is unbelievable to me. Yeah, it still blows my mind. So we had been planning to do a garden extension pretty much maybe the first year within moving here. We had planned to extend the garden. However, it was kind of brought upon a little bit quicker than what we had expected. A few reasons, one of them being we have just behind me here, you might be able to see some power poles in the distance. So we have what's called an easement that goes through sort of the middle of our property, and it's a large section of power poles that essentially we need to allow access. The power comes from where we are on the mountain. It takes it down to some coastal towns a little bit further away. We need to allow access for tree loppers, just to make sure that those power lines are clear, which means that we will, be notified, and somebody will be coming onto our property, going from the middle fence through to the other middle fence to the next door neighbour's property, and they will basically do like clearing underneath those power lines to make sure that there's no trees or branches touching those power lines. Now, we have a guard dog. He's an English/Australian bulldog. The Australian part basically just means he's got longer legs, and he, since moving here, has become quite territorial. And you want a dog to be protective of your property. And protective of you, and he definitely takes that role very seriously. To us, to our family, he's just a lovable big buff head, Chucky boy. But to anyone who happens to come to the property or to talk to us over the fence, like the neighbours, poor neighbours, he will put himself in between me talking to the neighbours over the fence. He's quite protective. Car pulls up, if someone puts their hand through the fence, it's not good. There's been some situations, and we really don't want anyone else going to the hospital. So we have constructed a fence through the middle of our property just before that easement, so that then we would be able to contain the dog and put up some signs just warning people, the tree people. They always let us know that they're coming, but just warning them that there is a guard dog here, and he can't be trusted. He will wag his tail and look like he's friendly, but he's not friendly. So we just needed to make sure that everybody was safe, and we don't have any problems with Chuck. So that was one of the reasons why we did the garden extension, because the halfway point is essentially one of the fence lines for the garden. So when we knew that we were doing that sort of halfway fence line between our property, we decided that it would probably be a good opportunity to actually do the garden extension, since we were already doing fencing, we were already doing posts, we already had to hire machinery. We also had mentioned previously about our next door neighbour possibly clearing the land for us, so it was just all grass originally, and we wanted to just scrape off probably about a foot of grass just so that we could get to the dirt underneath. I still have grass coming up, but I think that's going to be something that happens all the time. Our neighbour was going to do the clearing of the land for us. However, they're just at that point right now. It was lovely for them to offer, but they're just at that point where they're about ready to move into their property. They've been renting while they build next door, and they are just about ready to move in, and we just didn't want to put that pressure on them to have to help us when they're obviously going through so much themselves. So we spoke to them and just let them know that we were looking at employing somebody to help us do that, and they were completely fine, because he said I probably wouldn't get to it for a couple of months. We have my eldest daughter's 21st birthday here in December, and we are obviously trying to sort of get things looking nice before her party. I wanted to kind of create like a sunflower field sort of backdrop that she can get some photos taken with her grandparents. She's very blessed to have 6 grandparents. We are a blended family, and I really wanted to create some like kind of like photo opportunities essentially. So I'm doing a sunflower field, and sorry, that's Eugene, and also some cosmos and zinnias. So I'm setting up some sort of photo booths. So I really needed to get some of those things in the ground so that they would be flowering and mature enough by the time the party came along. So what we did was we actually employed Jason from Dig Me Excavations. Now Jason has done lots of work for us here previously, especially with regards to all that flooding that we had about 2 years ago. He was able to do a lot of trenching for us, and he's just so lovely to work with. So we asked Jason to put us on his calendar, and he came and he was able to scrape off all the topsoil, which was fantastic. And then we were using all that sort of grass, like about a foot of grass that he had scraped off. We essentially moved it and we created a berm on the outside of our garden. So we just knew we were going to have lots left over, and we didn't want basically a big mountain of dirt and grass. So we created a berm, and what a berm is basically is just about a foot or 2 high mound of soil, and you plant into it. So we've planted quite a few plants into that, and it will help with any raining, any runoff, because we are on a little bit of a slope. So to that side is slightly higher than to this side, so there is a gradient, and it will just help slow any water from sort of like rushing down onto the gardens. Okay, so that's a lot of the details about the garden extension. Now let's have a look at it. Okay, so just walking inside my front gate here is the new garden. Now I am looking, this is a rose garden bed. I am looking to extend it all the way up this side. You can see there's actually a rose still in the middle of the footpath. It's still very new. It's very raw here. So I've put the landscaping fabric down. I don't know where my pathways will be eventually. This is purely just this growing season. I believe come next winter I will probably redesign it all. But I wanted to get some things in the ground because obviously we are on a little bit of a timeline. The only permanent thing I know is that, excuse those stakes, but that garden bed there will continue to be roses. Apart from that, I'm not entirely sure about the rest of it. So just here this year I wanted to just set up essentially a like pumpkin, rockamelon, watermelon, spaghetti squash, all those sorts of sort of crazy greenery area here. So I have had quite a few come up. I have some big, what are they called? Big Max pumpkin seeds, which are pumpkins that grow to about 100 kilos. So this one here is Max, and the one down here is Maxine. But I have some watermelons come up. I have Kent pumpkins. Same with this area here. I haven't finished putting the sugarcane mulch down, but same with this area here. I'm really good at growing grass as well. If anyone needs any tips, I can grow grass really, really well, and weeds, great at that. This over here is just a compost bin that I had laying around that I wasn't using. I don't like that style of compost bin, so I'm actually looking at turning it into a planter at some point, but currently I just have all of essentially my garden scraps that I'm coming across, and I'm using it kind of as like a bin. Any sticks, any weeds, anything like that, I'm just adding to it, and it seems to be working well. This is the other entry. Excuse the hose, I still haven't worked out any irrigation. Yeah, that's a pile of gravel that we still haven't finished moving. But this here is another entry. I think eventually I will put something in this center section here, the roses there. So I think something really structured and formal will look really nice. I would love to one day have a big tunnel, so kind of like I have over here, where I have the Rio, the garden Rio. I think it's actually concrete as Rio, but where I have that Rio mesh supporting plants that can grow, I want to have essentially double that. And I'm thinking here somewhere, and leading down to eventually a shed of some sort down in that section there. But currently I have some sweet corn that has been planted. I had some mixed germination on it. I've never been great at corn, but I keep trying. Every year it gets a little bit better. This here is a patch of sunflowers. Obviously, I've only planted the really tall ones at the back. They need a little bit longer to mature. And I still have time, just some excess soil, but I still have time here to actually put in some other sunflowers that are a little bit shorter. So these are the giant ones that grow to like 1.5 meters tall. And then obviously I'll have some shorter ones at the front. And I'm thinking just some garden chairs here, again, for all those grandparents and our daughter for a photo opportunity. I think if I can get the sunflowers up behind them, if you can use your imagination and put sunflowers everywhere, and a lovely little outdoor setting there at the front with some grandparents and my daughter, I think it will look fantastic. So the soil here is actually very, very heavy clay. It's a nightmare to try and break up and plant into. I've been using a broad fork to get down into it and spreading in, we just purchased this, spreading in some compost and also some Extra Proper veggie garden mix. So I've been doing that and then layering sugarcane mulch on top just because it's so hot that everything's drying out. So we have had some unseasonably warm weather here. Today I believe we've got a high of 36 and we are just in the very, very start of October. That sort of weather usually is reserved for, say, January, February for us when we're in the middle of summer and we're getting the hot days. It's currently, I think it's about 7 o'clock in the morning and it's about 23, 24 degrees already. Now we have got today, which is very hot at 36, and then we dropped down again for another couple of days for the 10 days. So I'm looking forward to that cooler weather. It's just a matter of keeping everything alive in the meantime. Then we have this garden bed here, again, really, really heavy clay. I'm thinking I'm going to plant something quite spectacular in that compost pot. I just buried it down a bit. We have really strong winds here. But I'm thinking that I'm going to put something beautiful in there, and then I'm going to plant all cucumbers in this bed and surround it by just a single layer of flowers. So I'm not sure what type of flower yet, but all around the border, kind of create like a border, and then in the center will be the cucumbers, because you know they're not lovely to look at, but I think that will be a good use of that space. This one here is my plan B. So underneath all this mulch that you can see is lots and lots of zinnia seeds. I planted in quite a few different varieties of zinnias, and I really hope that they come up because I think that they will look absolutely stunning. I left a little bit of a pathway there just to get access to the zinnias. For the posy project I'll need to cut them, and also behind there I have transplanted some cosmos seedlings that just popped up. Last year I had a little bit of time where I didn't actually get into the garden like I normally would, and the zinnias were obviously at the point where they were done, and they have self-seeded everywhere. So I picked 20 of them yesterday. I don't know if they'll get through today's heat wave, but I definitely have many more in my garden that I can actually use. And again, this is another plan B, so I'll have my lounge area here for the photo opportunities. I'll have the zinnias, all beautiful bright colors, and then the cosmos at the very, very back. So this is just a second option for if the sunflowers don't come out. I just want to make sure that we're covered. So I did have all those sunflowers actually planted. The first lot didn't germinate, didn't get anything. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to need to add soil. So I added some soil and compost. The second lot did germinate, which is fantastic, and then birds stole them. The third lot, which is currently in the ground, I have lost quite a few to birds already, so I will be over sowing them again. So it's been quite the ordeal, and that's actually the reason why I wanted to make sure that I had another lot of garden beds, so that if it didn't work out, I've got a plan B. So yes, this will be the rose garden I mentioned earlier. Now we do have this tree. Now, is this tree stunning? No. Is this tree important? Very. We have a endangered bird in our area. This tree is called a she oak. We have an endangered bird in our area called a glossy black. I think that might have actually been them in the background a few minutes ago. But the glossy black is endangered, and this is one of their food sources. So, can you see all the little nuts on the ends of those branches? That is actually what the glossy blacks eat. So we knew when we were coming in here that these sorts of trees were protected. Mostly, I have seen them in this tree, but we do have a further patch, excuse the sun, but we do have a further patch down here, and they generally tend to prefer that area over there, I think because it's a little bit bushier. However, the glossy blacks, we need to protect this tree for them. So this will always be within our gardening plan. Now this branch in here is so funny. It just sticks straight out. I can walk under it, which is fantastic, but we have kookaburras that love to perch up here. So we have a lot of kookaburras on our property. We have a family of about 6. I think it's currently 6, obviously each year it changes, but we have a family of about 6 of them, and they perch on this branch all the time and look out for grubs. So they will be on the hunt for worms from that perch, and it's just stunning. One thing that I did want to add over here was a side access gate. So this gate here, we will be able to store like compost deliveries, stone deliveries, anything that we need, we can store in this area over here on the grass. It doesn't look very big, but it actually is quite a decent area. And we will also be able to drive straight up to this area. So we backed our trailer in this gate, dumped it here because this is currently what we're working with. But just having this access is absolutely fantastic. You can move materials in. I also have a garden buggy that I use quite often, our yellow garden buggy. I will be able to drive that in here. So if I load, it has a tip truck on the back. If I load up my buggy with something that's been delivered, I will be able to tip truck it into a garden bed, which obviously saves a lot of hard work. So it's fantastic. Originally we had, like for the last 2 years, we've been dealing with flooding here, and we had to have all our supplies delivered at the very, very front fence because they couldn't get trucks onto the property. It was just too wet, the ground was too soggy. So we've had to load up at the front fence, then come back here and sort of move them into the garden. So we're just trying to cut out some of the processes, I suppose, and save our backs a little bit. So if something is delivered here, it is fantastic. I can load it straight into the garden, and also we can get the trailer here. So we can buy things in bulk through our local landscaping company. We can buy things in bulk and actually have them in our trailer and be able to dump them straight into the garden, which makes it so much easier. You guys, look at this view. So I'm obviously out very early this morning, but this view, as the sun comes up through the trees, I just love it. Absolutely love it. These liquid ambers are just getting all their leaves back again after winter, and it's just beautiful. So we made this area just over here underneath the she oak tree, mainly because we don't have any shade at all in our garden. Brand new property, brand new garden, no established trees whatsoever, except for obviously the bush. So we wanted to make sure that we had a nice shady area to sit, and it is just lovely. The wind is really starting to pick up now, so I hope you can hear me. But yes, it is just absolutely lovely sitting under here. You actually get a little bit of shade, which is so nice when you just need a cold drink on a hot day, and then you can get back up and start again. So it's nice to have that little bit of a reprieve area in the garden. So thank you so much for joining me in the garden today. We are really loving having this extra space to play with. As I said, there's nothing really permanent set about it just yet. I'll probably work on something maybe in winter time, sort of work on a plan, but it may just stay like this for maybe a year or two, I don't know. But I just love having that option to actually be able to grow more food and more flowers, and I just think it's fantastic. I find gardening a great challenge, mentally a great challenge, physically great exercise, and creativity. I absolutely love it. So I really, really love that we have this garden extension now, and I can grow more food for our family and for friends and flowers for the posy project. We have our first posy project day coming up this weekend, this Sunday. So the original one we had scheduled for last month, however, we had to cancel it because the garden was so slow waking up from winter. So I literally had no flowers. So I will do a full garden tour for you very shortly, but I am absolutely loving our new garden extension. Thank you so much for joining me today. Bye.